It also obviously includes far eastern sections of Franklin Parish as the storm continues to move to the northeast. Relatively slowly, again, only about 30 miles an hour, so the heavy rain becomes a problem there as well. A lot of areas starting to see roadways covered with raw water, a lot of street flooding being reported specifically in Union Parish, so be mindful of that. And again, also still watching while we're circling things out, that area right there in Richland Parish as an area of concern. In fact, very concerning at this point.
Yeah, Jared, quickly noting that the tornado warning was extended by the National Weather Service. It appears they extended the warning because they noticed the circulation shifted its position, but it still maintained a fairly similar or slightly weaker, but still there circulation. So kind of similar to what we've been saying for a while now, that circulation is kind of just lingering. It's there, and it really will not just completely dissipate.
No.
As long as it's out by itself, I don't see a reason that it would. There's not a reason that it just would.
All right, and so while we're going ahead and kind of alerting folks, I just want, again, for folks, there's going to be two areas I'm about to circle. One is a tornado warned storm, okay? So the tornado warning that you see in the flashing red box, that purple circle, that is the concern area for a possible tornado right here. East of Wisner and east of Gilbert. We'll be moving into northwestern. This is Tensas Parish, Madison Parish. Here's Tallulah. Here's Delhi. But also this area right here in Richland Parish, just across the Ouachita line, that area right there has one of those almost inflow notch type signatures with it, and you start to see the winds kind of twisting in together there. Not a tornado warning, but a severe thunderstorm warning in effect. That is an area that we'll watch, and I would be off the roads and sheltered if I was in that area in Richland Parish. Again, no tornado warning issued with it. South of Rayville and along 425, between Rayville and Winsboro, I would really keep an eye on that particular part of that one storm here in the short term. So again, to recap, tornado warning in effect for Tensas, Madison, and Franklin parishes until 12:45. Also keeping an eye on that Richland Parish storm. Numerous severe thunderstorm warnings also in effect. So we'll be carrying through at least the lunchtime time frame here with what we're dealing with right now.
What Jared is showing you is certainly more pressing and a more urgent issue, but just want to quickly note, especially if you're around the Louisiana-Arkansas state line, Union Parish, you just got a report that we have some closures of roadways. State Highway 33 north of Farmerville, Highway 2 just east of Farmerville city limits, and Highway 828 near Dean Road, resulting from a culvert blowout, and have now been closed until further notice.
All right, thanks, Trey. Again, this tornado will be eventually now moving into Tensas Parish, or possible tornado will be moving into Tensas Parish. And again, I keep kind of drawing things out on screen and kind of walking back over here to kind of pinpoint it. But you can, the arrow that I've kind of drawn here, it kind of illustrates the inflow notch. And I know if you're watching this from a Facebook live stream, you can't even see it, but I've drawn a little arrow here just showing kind of the winds kind of feeding in to this line and where it could create that low-level rotation. And you start thinking about almost the swirl of a bathtub drain in the low levels of the atmosphere, and all it takes is just that small thing that can get something going. And for folks south of Rayville along 425, that is I'm not going to say concerning, it's just a peculiar area that I would be, if I was in the path of that storm, Mangum, Rayville, all the way down to Winsboro, there's probably some 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts at least to be had there, and maybe, there could be a possible tornado forming.
Yeah, like you said, there's definitely signs of rotation just to the south of Rayville, moving near Mangham right now. And it's, again, not a tornado warning. It's not been issued or anything like that, but there is definitely signs of rotation. Nothing's on the ground. This is what we're just believe what we're looking at right here. Nothing's been confirmed or anything like that. I don't want to alarm anybody with this particular storm moving into Richland Parish right now. But yeah, if you live out ahead of that main line, Mangham, Rayville, and stretching to Delhi, Winsboro, this storm, it's heading in your direction. This is definitely not a time to really be out and about, especially out on the roadways if at all possible. If you can avoid travel, I would definitely avoid that if you can. And if you have the severe thunderstorm warning currently in effect for Richland Parish, so even if nothing tornadic comes out of it, we still have 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts that's been indicated with these storms that can still cause potential damage.
Chase, something Chase did earlier, I pointed out the wobble potential of that storm, and it's what Jared was noting just a couple minutes ago, how it shifted further north and we needed 2 warnings. We were talking prior to that about, I don't remember what specific community it was, but there was a city right near the warning. It wasn't in it, but we said you are far too close for comfort, and it takes one small shift of the storm, and it's going to come right up through your area. And that's kind of the area and the potential that we're seeing. Mangum's not necessarily right in the path of this storm, but given a small shift of the line, Mangum could see an increase in not only winds, but torrential rainfall as well. You're going to see that anyway, but that notch is very close to the city of Mangum.
And we saw with here in West Monroe, and looking at that traffic cam, the visibility with this storm, it's going to drop. As soon as that main red squall line hits your area, the visibility just drops outside. That's the reason why if you're out and about on the roads, you just need to be extra careful. If you have to pull over if you have to, all right? It's just not advice at all to be traveling, especially along Highway 425, from Rayville down through Winsboro, and especially further down as you get to Gilbert and Winsner, who have, on the backside of that tornado warning, but that same squall line stretches all the way down past Winsboro and Gilbert.
Yeah.
You guys will be picking up on the heavy rainfall within the next 30 minutes.
I also think that line is eventually about to catch up with our supercell. And that may be the only thing that ends up disrupting this one little cell is the line that's about to catch up to it from behind. So again, to kind of go back after we've talked about so much, and there's a lot of stuff to cover on a day that we really weren't expecting a widespread severe weather day. There is a lot of stuff to talk about, but the tornado warning in Franklin, Tensas, Madison parishes is still the top precedent. This is State Highway 4. Here's the Ferry New Light Landing communities, the New Quarters community, Tensas Bluff, Hopewell Landing, the Loreline communities back out to the west. This is now moving firmly into Tensas Parish. So again, make sure that you're sheltered, interior portions of your home away from windows and doors. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. As we said earlier, I just want folks to be mindful of the fact that if you're watching on social media, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on our website, if you're even watching on television in some form or fashion, this signal is delayed. So start thinking a minute, 2 minutes ahead of time. Think if you're in the New Quarters community, you want to be sheltered now. You don't want to wait for me to tell you that, because it may be too late for you if I say, okay, this storm's over New Quarters. You're getting that information. Depending on transmission of technology, you could be getting that a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes late. So just be sheltered now. The Tensas Bluff community, moving into, as we mentioned, rural sections of northwestern Tensas Parish. There's not a lot of highly populated areas, but we just want you folks, you're our neighbors, make sure that you're sheltered. Make sure you're in your safe place. Go ahead, Trey.
Something to also throw out there. I'm not quite sure if we're currently there, but we were at one point for an extended period of time. Chelsea, our news director, sent us a message that we were, at least for an extended period of time, live on YouTube. So if you...
I think we are, yeah.
Yeah, so if you have somebody in the younger crowd, maybe teen or mid-20s, that doesn't necessarily get on Facebook or watch television, and they have a smart TV or just their cell phone, they can pull up our stream on the YouTube, and that's very accessible, and that will help a lot of folks, I think.
All right, so we have a large area, and again, just trying to kind of reset for folks that are joining us. All of those yellow boxes that you see on your screen are different severe thunderstorm warnings. Most of them have been issued relatively recently, and the main concern with that line would be damaging wind gusts. A tornado can't be ruled out within that line, but the main concern will be damaging wind gusts. And when you look at the structure of that big kind of cluster of storms as it moves off to the east, that's still the main driving force with all those warnings is the damaging wind potential. Maybe some small hail, but hail is really an afterthought with any of the storms today. Again, the tropical nature of the environment just doesn't really foster a lot of hail production. It's going to be winds and isolated tornado activity.
all of the new severe thunderstorm warnings that have been issued extend to at least 1 o'clock this afternoon, and the current tornado warning, which is the main reason we're currently on air right now, it's still expected to last till about 12:45. So we'll at least be on the air for the next 45 minutes for this particular tornado warning. However, we still have multiple severe thunderstorm warnings that are in effect that are been indicating produced 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts indicated by radar. So again, it's definitely not a great day to be out and about, especially as I mentioned earlier along Highway 425 from Rayville stretching down to Winsboro. I would say Monroe and West Monroe are currently on the backside of that main stretch, and what we're going to be dealing with the rest of the day is just light to moderate rainfall, which could potentially lead to minor flooding and flash flooding in a lot of places, because we've already picked up on a lot of heavy rainfall just now, and then there's still a lot more to follow, stretching all the way back towards Ruston and Minden. So there's still a lot more rain to follow. We're definitely not done with the rain for that matter, but we still have the strong thunderstorms moving through parts of Caldwell, Richland, Franklin, Madison, Tensall Parish right now. And if you live along the Mississippi River Valley towards around the Vicksburg area, stretching on the Louisiana side, East Carroll Parish, Madison, Tensall, Concordia, you're going to be picking up on these storms within the next hour or two. So you want to go ahead and get ready, and if you delay travel if you possibly can, because these storms will be moving in your direction here before too much longer.
Also, don't forget a flash flood warning has now also been issued for Union County, Union Parish, and Claiborne Parish till 3. Again, kind of just piggybacking off of just how much heavy rainfall we're dealing with in the area. And also for folks that may have pulled over on the side of the road or pulled off into a convenience store or a grocery store or something waiting for the tornadic storm to pass, keep in mind you got this cluster of storms rushing in behind you. That's going to bring some heavy rain as well.
And just with him, Jared noting that, another thought that popped in my mind, a lot of times Jared will say something and it brings a thought to my mind. Just want to note, I saw some folks doing it yesterday out in Texas, but if you ever find yourself out on the roadways, I know it's tempting, but do not ever pull under an overpass to avoid a heavy thunderstorm or a tornadic circulation. It enhances the wind and almost makes it sort of like a wind tunnel, and it increases the power of that wind as it goes through. That's one of the worst things you could do in a situation like this.
I'm going to be very, very honest with you. I know this part of Tensall Parish, not a lot of overpasses there. There really isn't, because again, the interstate doesn't go through there. This is a part where there's not very many major highways that go through this particular area, so there's not really that opportunity to go under. But yes, that is a huge no-no.
And so that's why local meteorologists, that's why we're still here, because Jared's got that knowledge of the geography. He can just look and he knows, he's been there, and it's just, also your area.
Like I said, there's not a lot of people in these areas, and I'm just being honest. And if you know Tensall Parish and you know this part of Tensall Parish, you know that this is more hunting camps and wildlife refuge, things of that nature, than it is, subdivisions and neighborhoods and things of that sort. But there's still farmhouses and folks that live there. That's their land and that's
People's
their property.
lives.
So we definitely got to keep that in mind. Our velocity signature that we had earlier in Richland Parish, the Rayville folks along Highway 425, that has really kind of started to gust out again. It's not necessarily tornadic. It looks to be more damaging wind at this point, and the greens that you see tucked back, the brighter greens, are kind of almost contamination at this point with the radar signature. So when you see the bright greens, you normally think rotation, but in many instances that's not always the case. Again, it does take a trained eye to kind of read some of that stuff and those instances. So again, tornado warning in effect till 12:45 as we are starting to kind of lose a little bit of the organization and circulation with, and I want to kind of keep an eye on this storm back to the west as well, the cluster back to the west. But our storm and our area of rotation has started to kind of wobble back to the northwest a little bit, may already be in southern portions of Madison Parish at this point.
They have shaded off the warning for Franklin Parish. Franklin Parish is no longer included in the tornado warning. It's only northern Tensall Parish and the southwestern section of Madison Parish, just to the south of Tallulah. Tallulah is not in the tornado warning, but they have shaved off Franklin Parish. But there's still again, weak signs of rotation, but it's starting to get harder to see as it's moving closer to the Mississippi River.
If you're more familiar with the north-central part of the Arklamis and areas to the east, this is 15 miles east of Winsboro, moving northeast at 30 miles per hour.
Yep, near the New Light communities. And like I said, moving now more or less into southern Madison Parish. And again, so while I kind of leave these things on the screen for you for a brief period of time, I'm also trying to give everybody that point of reference before I bounce back out to this zoomed out vantage point of what we're seeing currently. So the purple circle area is our purple circled area is our possible tornado. Yellow is severe thunderstorm warnings. Red is a tornado warning. So again, a lot of different colors. And I'm talking about the yellows and reds in terms of boxes on screen. Obviously, the yellows and reds here are all rainfall as that continues to surge eastward. So that very small circled area right here. And for those that are watching us on social media and may not be able to see the circle, it's this area right here. Northwestern sections of Tensas Parish, right along the Tensas-Madison line there, moving into southern Madison Parish. That's where our possible tornado would reside. Then a pretty menacing line of storms stretching from Bastrop, winding all the way to near Rayville, or maybe a little bit farther east of Rayville, southward right along Highway 425, and then tucking all the way back to the west-southwest towards Winfield and Pollock and some of those areas. Some damaging wind gusts certainly to be had, some very heavy rainfall. A lot of spots have seen some torrential rain today, and so keep that in mind. For folks in the tornado warning, guess what? You've got the line of storms coming in behind you. So if you're sheltered or if you're off the roads in Tensas and Madison parishes, you probably need to stay sheltered and off the roads in Tensas and Madison Parish. I would say the warning goes until 12:45, but I would say it's a safe assumption that you're probably going to need to stay sheltered till upwards to 2 o'clock in the afternoon because you got the line coming in afterwards.
And certainly something else to notice about the structure of that segment that's warned. Notice the difference between our storms here, and this is something we talk about a lot because it closely relates to people's safety and taking pictures and videos. Number one, we don't want you to compromise your safety to send us a picture or video ever. And number two, if you'll notice the stronger areas of wind and rain and reflectivity on this particular product, notice how it's surrounded by an area of green. All these storms that come through, tornadic or not, if there is a tornadic circulation, it's going to be rain wrapped. What that means is, in this part of the country, you're going to have a very difficult time spotting a circulation, or albeit if there was a tornado on the ground, unless it's a large violent tornado that you can easily pick out in the sky. But most likely it'll be very hard. All you're going to see is a wall of wind and water unless it's already past you and you're checking it out from the backside. So
we never want anybody to take a picture of a tornado. If you know, obviously people take pictures and videos of tornadoes all the time and they send them in. And yes, TV stations put them on the air and we probably shouldn't because we tell folks not to do that. But we don't want you to take those pictures. We don't want you to take those videos. If you want to send in pictures of damage or something that you observe after the fact, great. But that's not even a good idea in Tensas Parish right now because you got the line coming in after the fact. It's going to bring more heavy rain and wind and things of that nature.
Easily to be trapped between the two.
Right.
And there are a lot of folks, like we can tell you over and over again until we're blue in the face.
There's a new tornado warning. Yeah, this is the one that we were talking about in Richland Parish earlier. So let's go ahead and go with that one. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near Rayville, moving northeast 45 miles per hour. So Rayville, you're in the path of this possible tornado. Let's go ahead and zoom out and take a closer look at the velocity. Yeah, it would be pretty much right over I-20 here in Rayville is where that possible tornado would be. Doesn't necessarily imply that it's an overly strong area. In fact, I would say it may have looked even stronger a smidge earlier when we were watching it, but there's your new tornado warning. So 2 tornado warnings out now to carry us past the lunchtime time frame into the early afternoon. The latest one until 1 o'clock does include folks right along I-20. And now, all of Trey's tips that he just gave you earlier about not going under overpasses and things of that nature, that's where this comes into play. Don't go under an overpass, pull over. I saw the tornadoes a couple weeks ago in central Arkansas, and folks were pulling under the 630 and 430 overpasses. Don't do that. Find a store. It's the middle of the afternoon, and there's a lot of stuff along I-20 in Rayville. There's grocery stores, there's fast food restaurants, there's all types. You take your pick. Pull over, wait for the storm to pass, wait for this line to pass, and clear your area, and then you can resume your travel. If for a point of last refuge, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, somehow pulled over on the side of the interstate and you don't know what to do and you feel like you're in a tornado, refuge of last resort is to exit your vehicle and lie flat in a ditch or a culvert. Yep. That may be tough to do because of all the heavy rainfall that we've received. So again, we want you to think proactively and preemptively on this end. You don't want to get stuck out on the roadway with this possible tornado as it starts to trail to the north and east. So this tornado warning does include Richland, West Carroll, East Carroll, and Madison parishes. So Madison Parish technically under two different tornado warnings for two different storms at this point as it moves off to the north and east. You guys have that highlighted. Tough to really pinpoint any particular area. So I would just say, folks, anywhere along and north of Highway 80 and I-20 and south of Highway 80 and I-20 need to be sheltered right now.
Yeah, regardless, I mean, it's near the Rayville area, and it's about to cross over the I-20 corridor, probably between Delhi and Rayville if it continues the track it's going. If you live within the Rayville and Delhi communities, you need to start heading to your tornado safe place right now. And then further down the polygon, further into West and East Carroll Parish, we have the community of Epps, there's Forest, we have Lake Providence that's actually included in the tornado warning that extends along the Mississippi River to East Carroll Parish, and that's if, of course, the system holds up. But this will be on for at least the next 50 minutes. It's 12:10 right now, and this is expected to last till about 1 p.m. That's how long the tornado warning is. That's the newest one that we have, 2 in total, and Madison is now under 2 tornado warnings. But it kind of looks like the new one that we have is just going to clip a northern section of it. The people in Madison Parish, I would be more concerned with the one below that, just to the south of Tallulah, if that one continues to hold up and cross the Highway 65 corridor.
Very quickly, I'm just going to switch over from the radar screen. I'm checking to see how many power outages we have. It does not look like we have many. I was just going to make sure that we're not losing track of a bigger issue here. If you are watching us in some of these areas that are under tornado warnings, not a bad idea. If you haven't been, charge your mobile device. If you're going to lose power in Rayville and some of these surrounding areas, you want to make sure that you have your cellular device charged and ready to go. I'm going to leave links up for very quickly. I'm actually going to try to call Kyla Scott, who lives in that general area. And
okay. First thing to note, I was actually about to mention, if you notice the particular shape and size of the polygon, and notice how it's a bit larger and more rectangular than the polygons we've been seeing. This is another one of those instances, Chase, where we're very thankful for the technology we have here in West Monroe at the KTVE, KARD, NBC 10, Fox 14 studios, because if you'll notice, the particular location of these two warnings, especially the one to the north, without the Monroe radar site here, the West Monroe site, it's placed directly between Weather Service Shreveport and Weather Service Jackson. Even the Weather Service noting in the chat, it says they're noting some features with the segment, but also it's tough to see due to distance from radar. So this is where we're thankful for that technology. And Chase, I'm going to step up here real quick, and if there's anything you want me to point out quickly.
Now, the biggest things to really pointing out is the 2 tornado warnings right now, and the one that's just been issued between Rayville and Delhi. Those 2 areas need to be in their tornado safe place right now. And if you live within the Epps, Lake Providence, you need to also pay attention, because this storm system will be in your area. I'll go ahead and do a little storm track from the area rotation towards Lake Providence and the Mississippi River Valley going that direction. It'll be in the Epps community around 1224. Forest.
Just a second, Chase. Justin, if we could take links 1, Chase is about to, there's the storm track we were referring to.
Yeah, we'll switch over to links 1 if we could.
There we go, you're good.
Okay, yeah, so I'll just re-mention what I just said. Epps at 1224, Forest at 1232, and it'll be at Lake Providence at about 1238. So you have about 20-minute leadway here before the storm system makes it to your area. Now, of course, the area of Rayville and Delhi, it's already right around your area, and you need to be in your tornado safe place right now. If you live in the communities I just mentioned, you have about a 5 to 10 minute window there to start heading to your tornado safe place. But we've been talking about these storms, how they're moving very slowly, about 15, 20 miles per hour.
Now, yeah, this segment, this Rayville segment's moving a little bit faster. It's moving at 45. So, and it's because it's the Boeing segment, and so that Boeing segment's going to move a little bit faster than the little lone supercell that you had out there. So as Chase zooms out, Trey's on screen with you, kind of pointing things out as you see them. I just called Kyla Scott, who is our NBC 10 anchor, and she lives out in Richland Parish, and so I was just going to check and see, and she said it's raining and windy, but they had already seen the worst kind of come through her area, and nothing there. So again, we're just kind of keeping an eye on two different tornado-warned storms that are pretty menacing right now, Trey.
Yeah, Jared, and also question, while you were out, I noticed, and Chase and I were discussing that our radar is situated in a good spot to particularly see this system here and see this storm. And we were wondering, the National Weather Service radar is a little far off to see a lower level scan, and we were wondering if you see maybe anything extra or that's not noted yet with our closer scan of the storm.
Not really, and the other kicker with our radar is now we're kind of catching the back edge of these storms, so we're having to go through some pretty consistent rain and some pretty heavy rainfall to kind of see the front edge of this storm. But that said, this tornado warning was explicitly issued not necessarily for one particular area, but just for the possibility of a spin-up tornado. Spin-up does not imply weak, but in this instance, it would probably be maybe a 90 or 100 mile an hour wind tornado, maybe even weaker than that. But again, just a brief tornado that could form within that segment as it moves off to the east.
Yeah, and whether there's a brief tornado that forms or not, it's also really important to note if you're in these areas that whether there's a small tornado that forms or not, you're also going to see those damaging winds because this whole segment's bowing out. The whole segment that's highlighted here, you notice the whole bowing segment, but this was issued due to kind of a kink in the line here, kind of seeing it align with some wind shear values, which means a turning with height, but also just the whole segment's bowing out, so whether you see a weak spin-up tornado or not, you're going to see some pretty strong winds there, which can cause damage alone.
EF0 tornadoes produce usually 70, 80 mile an hour winds, right? Yeah. This severe thunderstorm warning is for 60 mile an hour winds. Tomato. It doesn't really matter whether you're seeing straight line winds or a tornado. It's still enough to down trees. It's still enough to cause structural damage. And you still need to be sheltered and off the roads.
Yeah, once you reach 60 miles per hour onward, that is the criteria the Weather Service kind of puts out there where you can start to see damage to trees, top of homes and businesses. Mobile homes can start seeing structural damage at 60 plus miles per hour winds. You don't necessarily need that tornado. Straight line winds of 60 to 70, that'll do it for any mobile home, and it'll definitely cause damage for homes and businesses, especially poor structured areas, And as we're starting to enter a little bit closer into the Mississippi River Valley, it's getting more rural. We're out of our area here in Monroe. As we get closer to the Mississippi River Valley, we're entering a lot of rural areas and small communities, and it's just really important that you're paying attention from Rayville to Delhi, Epps, Lake Providence. This storm, it's heading in your direction. So you need to be in a safe place and start heading to there now, especially around the Delhi area. And
you want to talk about higher populated areas. Rayville, Delhi, Epps are three of the bigger cities and towns in those areas. And so again, for folks that are watching us there, just please be sheltered. Let's go back over to links 2 real quick, kind of give a broader scope of everything, and also to outline this very large severe thunderstorm warning that's just been issued. The big yellow box that stretches into adjacent sections of Mississippi, that is a severe thunderstorm warning that goes until 1:30, includes Madison and Tensas parishes. It also includes Claiborne, Issaquena, and Warren counties in Mississippi, which is outside of our viewing area. But damaging wind gusts are a main concern here. Again, hail, if you do see any, would be small, maybe upwards to nickel-sized at its largest, if we get. But this is not an environment that's going to produce hail. It's heavy rain, winds, and these isolated tornado spin-ups that we've been dealing with through much of the morning and even dating back to last night. I will say also on that note, and we've just kind of left Trey sitting there just kind of standing in front of the screen. Sorry about that. But, on that note, we've really kind of started to lose this southern storm's rotation. I'm not saying that it's not forming a tornado. I'm just saying from our vantage point and our radar, we're really struggling to see anything there. And the National Weather Service and Jackson's radar is not necessarily picking up anything either. So I'm going to put you on velocities mode there, Trey, so you can kind of see what we're talking about. And I'll go ahead and circle some things out while you kind of talk things through.
Yeah, sure. This southerly storm definitely not as concerning as it once was. Now, this is a storm, if I'm correct, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the circulation we've been monitoring that's kind of lingered for quite a while and has kept us on air for so long, not necessarily producing anything, but that circulation's still there, so we see it and know the potential is there, whether it puts it down or not. Rather be safe than sorry. But with this bowing segment here, that's when we start to kind of monitor with large bowing segments in the line. Our main concern with those is first and foremost damaging winds, but when we see a kink in the line, that's where we can kind of see some circulation start to fire up. Now, not to say this is intensifying greatly by any means, but it's just a notable kink in the line. The rest of it down to the south following this tornado warning, which is going to move into the Cholula and eventually Vicksburg area. That's going to be followed by that damaging wind. So whether anything's being produced out in this area in the southerly storm, it's going to be quickly followed by torrential rainfall, damaging winds, and you can see the winds themselves there. And just very quickly, because I know Chase has got something, but wanted to note that when you're referring to the damaging tornado being an EF0 still causing damage, that's something probably said at least 50 times on the morning show when we're talking about a severe risk later on in the day. An EF0 comes down your street, that's a bad day. And you have winds equaling that, so you got anything blowing at 70 plus miles per hour in a straight line, that's dangerous.
Yeah, and on that note, Trey, a lot of these areas, and we've said this a lot, have seen a lot of rainfall. So now the ground is saturated, which means trees and root systems are saturated, where now we're getting to a point where even some 40 or 50 mile an hour wind gusts, if you have a weak tree that is already kind of puny or it's kind of on its last leg and it's struggling already as is, we have some of those in our neighborhood, a 40 or 50 mile an hour wind gust, when the ground's soggy like this, they can uproot very, very easily because of the saturated ground. So that's just something to keep in mind. The latest updated status message has severe thunderstorms capable of producing a tornado near Holly Ridge, which is generally right along and north of I-20 east of Rayville, near Delhi or near Delhi, moving northeast at 45 miles per hour. Again, I've circled a very elongated area there, just kind of all within the width of that tornado warning. A tornado could really form in any general area in that spot.
Right, yeah, and with that kink in the line, it's not necessarily, like I mentioned, sound like a broken record, but not necessarily seeing it progress in its what we call tornadogenesis, which means the process in which tornadoes are created and form. Basically just meaning we're not seeing this progress right at this moment, knock on wood, that anything that would indicate a tornado is progressing and getting ready to drop. However, there's still that kink in the line where we could see something form. If it does, that's where it would be in this particular polygon, the northern tornado warning. But the southern tornado warning kind of moving more to the south and almost out of our viewing area eventually pretty soon. But you'll notice that circulation Jared has circled there, just a minor area of concern there in that southerly storm. And I'd say definitely the northerly storm is more concerning at the moment than the southerly storm.
And I also just, again, want to preface by saying that southernmost tornado warning that's in southern Madison Parish, we're not getting a good look radar. It's moving farther away from our radar. We're looking at this storm now at about 4,000 feet and getting higher and higher as it moves farther and farther away. So, and it's also, again, we're looking through a lot of heavy rainfall. So, again, we still have the best vantage point out of anybody, but it's not a good one by any stretch. So I just want to kind of make that note. Also, that circulation, that possible tornado should be approaching Highway 65, which is one of the more traveled roads south out of Madison Parish. So, again, if you're exiting the Tallulah-Richmond area and heading south on 65, that's where that possible tornado is right now. Should be crossing the highway here shortly.
Approaching the Mississippi River, if I'm correct.
But it's got about another 20 miles.
Right. And once it does so, that's important to note. I've said that a few times today, but there are certain things that we like to hammer out during events like these. And one of those that's important now and kind of relatable here is this: as this approaches the Mississippi River, We hear a lot of chatter usually when it crosses a lake or a body of water, a tornadic circulation or a tornado. For some reason, there's a myth that it will be affected or diluted in some way. If you have a circulation strong enough, it's just going to go right on over it and continue on to the other side. So not to say that there's a tornado on the ground or even circulation that tells us that one's about to form, but this circulation shouldn't be affected as far as dissipating strictly by crossing the Mississippi River.
Yeah, new severe thunderstorm warning now out for Concordia and Tensas parishes, also adjacent sections of Mississippi for 60-mile-an-hour winds. That new severe thunderstorm warning goes until 2 o'clock. You can see it on the bottom part of your screen. Southern sections of Tensas Parish and northern Concordia Parish includes Natchez, Faraday, Vidalia, Waterproof, and some of those surrounding areas, again, until 2 o'clock.
As Jared has you kind of zoomed out here, note that a lot of the areas in Ouachita Parish here have kind of gotten a lull. It's still raining decently heavy around the area, but much lighter than it had been when these strong gusty winds in the main line moved on through. But behind that, areas like Ruston seeing the secondary, not as wide and not as dense of a system of storms, but that's going to quickly move into sections of Ouachita Parish, and that's another round of heavy rainfall and moisture accumulation to just add on to already saturated grounds and potentially flooded roadways.
Yeah, and with 2 tornado warnings out, I don't want to go to this right now, but again, just estimating or estimating rain totals in some of these areas, there's got to be some spots that have seen at least 3 or 4 inches of rain today alone, and then you tack on anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain that you've seen earlier this week. And that's why we're starting to see the green boxes pop up. And in fact, I don't even have those on the screen just because it's so incredibly messy, but I'll go ahead and show them briefly. Those are the flash flood warnings that we have in effect across the area currently. So again, just keep that in mind. I'm going to even take down all the watches. And those are all different warnings that are in effect, whether they be flood warnings or flash flood warnings, and all the bright green individual boxes are flash flood warnings. So again, just to kind of bring and drive the point home, we've seen a lot of heavy rainfall, and that's going to continue to become an issue as well.
Right, and Chase, kind of want to throw it to you here quickly, but something that we saw this morning, kind of been, as you know, training Chase on the morning show, but as he was getting more acclimated this morning, we actually were looking at his future tracker for rainfall accumulation, and it showed, I believe, above 4 to 5 inches, and we were kind of discussing amongst ourselves whether we thought that was potentially achievable, and this whole system kind of came not necessarily out of left field, but some of these tornadic potentials and these circulations, as well as the heaviness of the rainfall potential, some of it was expected, but it's actually performing quite well compared to the expectations.
Yeah, we had the feature cast showing from Ruston to Shreveport, possibly 5 to 6 inches of rainfall just for today alone, and then stretching from Monroe towards Tallulah it's been mainly along the I-20 corridor where the heaviest rain was expected, where we're looking at 2 to 3 inches, and that's all within a very short amount of time. And when you get that much rainfall at one point, there's nowhere for that water to go. With the ground already saturated, right, that's how you start to get those buildup, and some low-lying roadways, it just starts to pond up on the roadways, and even if you're driving through downtown or any low-lying area, you just have those standing water, and there's just nowhere for it to go. And so it just starts to pile up and pond in a lot of areas, and it's not really safe to drive through and especially walk in any of those areas.
Right.
In neighborhoods and stuff like that, you see on hurricanes and stuff like that, when there's neighborhoods underwater and stuff like that, it's not good at all to be treading through those waters because there's just like potential sewer backup and things like that. And
right,
with all the rain that we're seeing,
absolutely correct,
Arkansas,
right,
all the way down to Winfield, Columbia, there's just a lot of rain, and there's just nowhere for it to go, and it's just going to be ponding up on some of these low-lying areas, and you're going to see those creek beds start to come out of their banks a little bit and start to bleed a little bit, right, into some back road areas,
On that note, guys, I just did get a viewer picture in from the Swampers community, which is it's Franklin Parish, kind of south of Crowville, kind of off 17 and off the beaten path, if you will. There has been some small hail. It hasn't been severe, but I would say probably, from what I could tell, it was like dime to nickel. So it wasn't overly huge. As we take a look at these storms, again, Trey's kind of standing there with you on the screen with the tornado warnings in effect till 1 for East Carroll, West Carroll, parts of Richland and northwestern Madison Parish, and then until 12:45 for northern Tensas and southern Madison Parish. And for all intents and purposes, it looks as though our line has kind of caught up to the supercell, and I think we've undercut that supercell. The tornado warning just dropped off.
Yeah.
I was saying, I've lost that circulation completely. I saw nothing there.
Finally, we finally have been proved right.
Good
We've been
news.
discussing all morning and discussing how it would cut off. Eventually, hopefully that's what would get us out of the pickle, if you will, and kind of cut off the last remaining life support of this particular cell that was producing that rotation. And like Jared said, that's kind of starting to occur. And as the main line starts to catch the folks, or the storms, if you will, personifying, but the ones that were out ahead of the main line, that's when they kind of start to congeal, and it transition really from more of a singular threat from those storms, and also a small tornado threat, to an even less tornadic threat and a damaging wind potential as well.
We've really also kind of lost that storm on the northern edge, too. I don't want to say that too preemptively. If you're under a warning, stay sheltered, but it doesn't look near as menacing as it did.
Can't quite see it here, but is that the notch? Did it move a little bit out of the polygon to the right here?
Yeah, I'll zoom in for you, Trey. Me and Chase were kind of just making eye contact off screen, just kind of talking about how the main gap where that, and I'm going to switch over to the National Weather Service in Jackson as well, and it kind of shows the same thing. That northern flank is just kind of fizzled real quick, so we may get another tornado warning to get canceled if it continues on this trend. Still be sheltered if you're there, though.
Yeah, I mean, still be sheltered as long as the warning's in place, but not to get into the weeds or anything, but something we look for. We look for something called a weak echo region, and that is not as present at the moment, which would basically mean the rain's got to go somewhere when you have what you call a mesocyclone in the air. And as it does so, that's when we start to see the hooks and the backward C hook echoes. That would indicate a tornado and strengthening rotation. But if you notice, it's not quite as tight here as it was just a few minutes ago. It wasn't all that tight before, but really starting to kind of become a little sparse here. Of course, you see this line out to the east of Bastrop, but really this looks like it's more of a bow at the moment as well. And then the line where we were watching that rotation is kind of fragmented a little bit. You're seeing some fragments and a little bit of an indentation, but nothing I would really say is a kink in the line or a hook.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Trey, I don't see much of anything. And again, it's really simply put because it is that line, that convective complex, and something can spin up so quickly in such a brief period. And that's, to be honest with you, why the tornado warning hasn't been canceled yet, is because you want to err on the side of caution. The last thing you want to do is cancel a tornado warning and then have to reissue one. That is the worst case scenario. And that's why I haven't seen the National Weather Service have to do that in 15 years, because it's just that's really bad for the general public. To alert them, tell them they're fine, and then tell them, oh, wait, never mind, no, you're not. You need to get covered again. So that's why these tornado warnings, sometimes a lot of folks will look and go, why have they not just canceled it? It's erring on the side of caution. I had somebody ask me last night, why don't you guys just join on air on television once a tornado's been confirmed? It's too late at that point. So that's why these warnings are issued preemptively, and especially on a day like today. It's a really weird setup for severe weather today. And I don't like using the word weird very often, but it is. It's just an odd, delicate, complicated setup today.
That's also what Jared's talking about, kind of also relates back to, it all goes back to the safety of the viewers and the safety of the general public, because the motto of the National Weather Service and also our mission here is to protect life and property, and that's why we come on when there's tornado warnings and damaging potential with the weather of any kind, or it could be an environmental situation. But say all that to say, our main mission here is to keep you safe, and above all else, we'll always be here to do that. And one reason we stay on the air, whether it's when there's a weakening circulation or a weakening storm system that seems to lose rotation, is because you give folks a lot more warnings. We found through social science that folks, the more warnings you hear, the less likely you are to react when a warning is issued.
Yeah, I'll switch places with you there,
All right,
Trey.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
you've been standing there for a few minutes, and but yeah,
over.
it's all good. Like I said, as we start seeing kind of a downward trend in the overall intensity, and while we do need to stay with you on air in the event that something briefly spins up along this line, and while we stay with this active tornado warning across East Carroll and West Carroll parishes, just trying to explain some of the methodology behind. When you get an isolated tornado like this, we try to get as hyper-local as we possibly can. If we can pinpoint a tornado down to its street, and if you've watched this for a long time, you know we can at times do that. If we can do it, we will do it. If we can't do it, we try to get as specific as we can in a general area. That way you folks can be informed. When it comes to severe thunderstorm warnings like this, the reason we don't cut into your programming all the time for things like this, one, we get in my 16 years here, I think we've seen thousands of severe thunderstorm warnings, and we would be on your television almost constantly, all the time for severe thunderstorm warnings. The other kicker with severe thunderstorm warnings, 60 mile an hour or 70 mile an hour wind gusts and quarter-size hail, the vast majority of us will be protected by severe thunderstorms if you're off the roads and you're sheltered indoors. It's as simple as that. Away from windows, when things get menacing, or if the storm seems even a little bit more menacing than just a normal severe thunderstorm warning, take your tornado warning precautions. Go into that interior portion of your house. Go to the hallway. Go to the bathroom. Go to the closet, wherever you feel safe, and monitor weather from there. So again, those are all pieces of information that we just try to share with you, and we try to get as specifically local as we possibly can with some of these instances.
Yeah, Jared, I'm going to quickly step out and go. Firstly, I'm going to go look and see what we're seeing outside here at the West Monroe studio, but also I want to kind of check in on the way to the restroom and see if we've got any damage reports from the newsroom.
Make sure you turn your microphone off on your way out there. Trey will join Chase and I again here in just a second. Again, I generally think, Chase, that our severe weather coverage will be wrapping up here shortly. I can't imagine that this tornado warning stays active for much longer, but it can't rule it out completely.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've been switching between our radar and the Jackson radar, looking at the velocity and the storm relative velocity, and it's just very messy. It's not really, I don't want to downplay it and tell everyone that, like, it's not there, or to downplay it and be like, oh, we're okay. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's just hard to see it, and it's real messy. And so, like you said, it probably won't be too much longer before they do potentially cancel out this warning, because it's just nothing really to look at. It's like what we usually look at when we look at the velocity, when we see the green and red. It's just very messy, and it's not really showing the things that we normally look at when we're looking for rotation with tornadoes. And so, like I said, between those two radars, it's just very messy, but they're keeping it active till at least the next 26 minutes, as it goes to at least 1 o'clock, and we're about 12:36, so about 24 minutes left for this particular warning, and they're going to keep it active potentially until 1 o'clock, until they maybe cancel it, but they want to do that just so they don't have to potentially reissue it. They want to just make sure that you got the warning. You've had plenty of time, especially up in the area of East Carroll Parish from Lake Providence, the Epps area. You've had plenty of time to get into your tornado safe place since it was issued almost about 20 minutes ago, and had plenty of leeway time with that.
Yeah, and that's, again, one of those, just kind of notes as we continue to track this storm is, again, erring on the side of caution. This storm has really come down in intensity and organization, and almost it's like the northern flank of this complex of storms has kind of split, or maybe really the more reasonable explanation is this southernmost line or complex has kind of outrun what's happening to the north and west. And so as it outruns and leaves it, it kind of stretches all of this activity out, and it leaves this kind of area left behind. So that's probably what we're running into right now. We're going to stay with you on air, at 12:37 in the afternoon, simply because there is this flashing red box. And like I said, we err on the side of caution, And normally, and like I said, if you follow our tornado warning coverage pretty specifically, you would know that we would be hyper zoomed in somewhere here, trying to point out a street or a road or a reference point, a town, a neighborhood, a subdivision, something to let you know, hey, if you're in this general area, you need to be in your safe place. But if you're into the warning period at this point, if you're in that red flashing box, Delhi, Lake Providence, areas along Highway 65 in East Carroll Parish, you need to be sheltered. You need to be away from windows and doors, put as many walls between you and the outside as possible until this tornado warning is expired or it cancels. Expire meaning it hits 1 o'clock and another warning is not issued, and the National Weather Service can at times cancel them early. So just keep that in mind as a possibility. Fingers crossed that the conditions eventually get us to that point. But again, heavy rainfall, gusty winds. We really haven't seen a lot of lightning with a lot of these storms unless you get into the stronger segments. And the stronger segments are showing lightning, and obviously that would indicate kind of the most intense parts of these storms as they continue to trail to the north and east. I believe Oak Grove is not under this tornado warning. It's close, but again, this is going to be mainly focused for folks along Highway 65. Goes until 1 o'clock, but at the structure that we are right now, I can't imagine this tornado warning making it much longer.
Yeah, it's definitely just hard to look at. And again, the tornado warning is a tornado warning, so we definitely don't want to downplay it.
Sure.
If you live within this polygon, respect it. If once it's been drawn out, if you lie within it, you need to head to your tornado safe place. If you live in Epps, Lake Providence, head to your safe place. Just wait for the duration. We got about 20 minutes left before they cancel it, and they could very well cancel it early. That would be a best case scenario. So just head to your safe place, wait for the next 20 minutes. It will potentially get canceled because, again, we're not really seeing, I honestly couldn't tell you where, if it is there, where it could be, probably around the Epps area. It's just too messy to really pinpoint exactly. Normally we'd be zoomed in, telling you what street, exactly what road it would potentially be crossing on, but it's just too messy and too broad. So we're just really saying if you live within the polygon that's been drawn out, just head to your safe place, wait for the next 20 minutes. It will get canceled, potentially be canceled early. That's a best case scenario. Biggest concern, I would say, outside of that warning box is the area looking at the live radar, Tallulah, along Highway 65, stretching through Madison, Tensall Parish, all the way down towards Concordia Parish. They issued that new severe thunderstorm warning for you guys, where radar has indicated 60-mile-per-hour wind gust. Hail has not been that great. It's just been shy of an inch, about 3/4, which, dime or penny size, was so not damaging or anything, but
this is what Chase
really
is talking about,
seeing.
by the way. Go ahead, Chase. I was just pointing it out on radar. This is the segment that he's talking about where the severe thunderstorm warnings have been issued. That's the most concerning part for damaging wind gusts. Again, heed the tornado warning.
You can kind of see a little bit south of Tallulah. This is running into Tensall Parish. It's starting to bow out just a little bit right there. And I'm zooming in near the Nilton area and waterproof. You guys are about to pick up on some really heavy wind gusts, and once that rain starts coming down, then there goes your visibility, and driving outdoors, this is not going to be really recommended at all. It's just the visibility is just really going to drop, and it's just not going to be idle conditions at all.
And we're also starting to get some preliminary reports of some wind damage back in the Gina area and back into Dixie Inn, which Dixie Inn's well back to the west and I believe technically outside of our viewing area. But you're starting to get some of the damage reports trickling in of some trees down and things of that nature. Not necessarily what we would consider tornado damage or obvious tornado damage or anything of that nature. A lot of downed trees, like we've mentioned earlier, given the conditions that are in place. A lot of this, simply put, is just probably some gusty winds, and some soggy ground working together to uproot some trees. So that's probably where we're running into some of the biggest headaches at this juncture. Again, the active tornado warning, as we have it zoomed in, and I kind of chuckle at this point just because this is a really tough area to see anything, I want folks to be sheltered, but the bigger hazard right now is probably the heavy rain potential and maybe some gusty winds. But I think we've really lost a lot of storm organization with this particular tornado warned storm.
Yeah, we're just not seeing anything. If you're just now joining in with us, we're about 15 to 18 minutes before the top of the 1 o'clock hour, and this particular tornado warning is set to expire at 1 o'clock, and we're just about 18 minutes shy of that. So and it might be canceled early. There's just not a lot of structure or organization with this particular storm. It's hard to tell what street, it's hard to tell what area, but we can see at least where the main line, it's just part of a squall line, starting to move across. But even that squall line is starting to weaken as well. Really, the main squall line is from Tallulah, stretching down Highway 65 down through Tensall, and going through.
They're kind of separating.
It's really separated.
And we mentioned that earlier is when you get kind of a dominant segment within that line, and that's what this main area right here has become. It will just kind of come out, just run out and leave everything else. These storms to the north are moving much slower. So that's going to cause some heavy rain concerns across southern Arkansas. As you move to the I-20 corridor, there's the tornado warning storm that heads along and north of I-20, but it's this main segment here that's just running out and leaving everything else. So forward motion of this storm has increased a little bit, not moving in the 20 and 30 mile an hour stage, now moving in the 40 to 50 mile an hour stage, moving quickly, producing maybe some 60 mile an hour wind gusts within the line. That does not mean a continuous wall of 60 mile an hour winds is just going to barrel through the Mississippi River Valley. That's not the case with severe thunderstorm warnings. It means that an isolated severe thunderstorm winds of up to 60 miles per hour within this line are possible, along with some small hail. Heavy rainfall possibility as well. But again, keep in mind, our viewing area technically ends at the Mississippi River, and we only probably have another, I would say, 20 or 30 minutes of that main cluster as it moves to the east, and then still the tornado warning storm. There is still a tornado warning active in portions of East Carroll and West Carroll and Madison parishes, but like I said, that has really weakened to a point of almost not being recognizable.
Is that the same circulation we were pointing out a couple minutes ago before I walked out that was kind of breaking up?
Yes.
Kinking the line?
Yeah, and it's just kind of.
It was part of the same system that moved through Richland Parish, where we were looking at where there were strong signs of rotation, and then they issued the warning. But within the past 5 to 10 minutes, it's really weakened. That squall line, you kind of hardly see it anymore looking at reflectivity. I'd say our biggest concern right now, outside of that tornado warning, is the stretching on that 65 corridor from Tallulah down through Tensall Parish into Concordia, where we're kind of possibly going to see some strong gusty winds of about 60 miles per hour with that line that's moving on through. And there's also a severe thunderstorm warning that's also for the Bastrop area stretching into West Carroll Parish that will also potentially be picking up on some strong wind gusts as well. Probably going to pick up on some dime penny-sized hail. That's just less than an inch. It's not severe, but it's just, might see some of that. We hadn't really seen a whole lot of hail or hail damage with any of these storms moving on through. It's just really been those 60 mile per hour wind gusts and a couple of the tornadoes that have been issued. But I'd say this tornado warning for
it's going to stay till 1. So they're going to keep it for the next 14 minutes. We'll stay on air with you for the next 14 minutes, just kind of highlighting not only the tornado warning storm, but the severe thunderstorm warnings, kind of recapping everything, if you guys want to go over the flash flood warnings, let's just kind of recap everything over the next 14 minutes. Keep an eye on that tornado warning storm and other severe thunderstorm warnings. And then we will plan for housekeeping purposes for folks that are watching us on air and online. It looks as like our coverage will likely end at 1 o'clock or somewhere around there at the top of the hour. So just keep that in mind. So we'll continue to stay with you on air. You can see the flashing red tornado warning. Stay sheltered if you're in that area, regardless of what it looks like right now. And also just keep in mind the severe thunderstorm warnings to yourself. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, we got about 13 minutes left for this tornado warning. They're going to let it stay all the way to 1 o'clock to the top of the hour, and we'll stay with you for at least that long just to keep you informed if you're just now joining with us. If you live in the area of East Carroll Parish, Lake Providence, even Delhi is still included in the tornado warning, but when we look at, there's nothing really to look at on the velocity. It's just not very organized at all. And then when we switch to the reflectivity, sometimes you can kind of see the reflectivity of a tornado. You can start to see the rotation, and you can start to see the inflow and outbound winds inside the rotational shaft and everything like that. But we're not seeing that. It's just, honestly, there's no line. There's not really anything to be looking at when we're looking at this particular storm. So it's definitely weakened, but they're going to let it go to at least 1 o'clock just to be on the safe side. It's better safe than sorry. And I know a lot of people think, oh, nothing happened. Well, it's just a precautionary measure. The last thing you want to do is issue one and cancel and then reissue, because we don't want to take away or downplay the potential for it to become back up again, because it is still possible, but there's a lot of signs pointing that it is starting to weaken. I really believe our biggest concern outside of that warning box are the severe thunderstorm warnings that are stretching from Tallulah down Highway 65. If you're in the Tallulah and going down Highway 65, you do really need to not be out and about. The visibility is no doubt dropping. We saw that here in West Monroe when that same line, same storm system pushed over, visibility dropped, and we could possibly start to see some of the roadways begin ponding up. We were talking about the flash flooding threat. We still have flash flood warnings that are still in effect for parts of Union Parish stretching in Union County. That still includes El Dorado. There are no flash flood warnings in effect right now for Ouachita Parish in our main area here in Monroe and West Monroe, but there is still some get down to the south and stretching into Wynn Parish. Winfield is included in a flash flood warning right now. But right now, severe thunderstorm warnings will be remaining in effect till at least 2 o'clock for down south around Concordia and Catahoula Parish. And for Tensas Parish, your warning is set to be until 1:30. And then we have the tornado warning, which is set to expire in the next 11 minutes. And we're going to stay with you at least for the next 11 minutes until we let this warning expire. And once this warning expires, we'll kind of wrap things up and return to regular programming. But we're just going to stay with you just while the duration that tornado is active. And Trey, I know you've been watching this as well. You know, around the Bass Strip area, they've been picking up on heavy rainfall as well. But, you know, it doesn't look as heavy and strong as what we're seeing down further south from Tallulah along the 65 corridor stretching all the way down towards Concordia Parish.
Correct. And immediately in the minds of most viewers, I would assume that when you hear the loud claps of thunder and see the frequent lightning and the torrential rainfall in situations like this, rain-wrapped systems, your mind immediately probably asks the question, well, what's the tornadic threat? Are we going to see a tornado? Because that's the biggest and most intimidating. Well, speaking of tornadoes, we do have an update concerning the tornado watches around the area. And with that, we have seen the National Weather Service, this is issued out of the National Weather Service, Jackson, continue the tornado watch for, there you go, Chase got it pulled up there with you. You can see it as I read the counties, Ashley, Chico, and Arkansas, which are both in our viewing area. And then for Louisiana, Catahoula, Concordia, East Carroll, Franklin, Madison, Morehouse, Richland, Tensas, West Carroll, and Adams.
Yeah, keep in mind that those tornado watches will likely be trimmed away rather swiftly in north central Louisiana. I'm talking about Union County, Union Parish, Lincoln, Bienville, Jackson, Wynn, Grant. You folks probably won't be under a tornado watch all the way till 5 p.m. In fact, I would expect here in the next hour or two, y'all will be trimmed away. And the tornado warning has actually been expired early. They've canceled that 10 minutes early at 12:50. So that warning is about to pop off of your screen. And we were expecting to send you back to programming at the top of the hour, but we'll actually be able to send you back a little bit sooner than that. So again, we'll let that warning pop off the screen as it's being expired. Again, that storm has kind of lost all of its intensity and organization in producing a tornado. We'll keep an eye on this cluster of storms to the north. And this cluster of storms to the south that should be crossing the Mississippi River, I would say in the next 20 to 30 minutes or so. Again, still some damaging wind gusts, some heavy rain to be had as well, so exercise caution on the roadways. Any final thoughts, Trey?
Quickly, before we send you back to programming, I wanted to give an update. I did go down to the newsroom and ask about if we've received any damage potential or damage concerns from the area or viewing area, and thankfully, we haven't received any damage reports aside from those downed trees Chase was talking about earlier and some road closures. So that's certainly something we want to see. You could have the most menacing storm, but if it doesn't do some damage, that's what we want to see.
Yep. and to be honest with you, as we get new faces in the Weather Center, and Chase and Trey hasn't had a lot of tornado warning experience so far in his time here, it's a good opportunity to get some faces that you're not quite familiar with in severe weather coverage, and let you get familiar with their voices and you know, just their mannerisms and how they do things as well as these storms continue to move east. So again, an opportunity to kind of stretch our legs in the severe weather department and kind of alert folks while also getting some education in the Weather Center as well, which is always important. Again, keep in mind these storms as they move off to the east. We'll keep an eye on any other storms. If a tornado warning is reissued for our area, we will certainly let you know about it. But right now, as of right now, it looks like our storms are going to continue to fizzle. Trey, you guys have something? Are we going to get a new tornado warning?
Nope. They're just monitoring this base. I believed I was looking at something on the National Weather Service chat, but actually I believe that it actually has gone back the other direction. So I honestly believe that that warning is actually going to be canceled, and we should be able to send the good folks of the ArkLaMiss back to their regularly scheduled program.
Yeah.
Just appreciate the trust of all the viewers.
And again, I'm just trying to, that warning has not dropped off of your screen yet, but that warning has expired. I don't know why it has not.
Yeah, it's not come off the screen yet, but the Weather Service has decided to cancel that because, again, there's nothing there to indicate any sort of rotation or anything tornadic. Honestly, there's nothing there to indicate anything severe as far as damaging winds or potential for hail. It's just light to moderate rainfall happening in that particular area.
Yeah, I know I said I was done after that last remark, but this just popped up, and I think it's worth noting. The Weather Service Jackson has noted they still have the tour possible tag on the severe thunderstorm warning, but I just want to let you know if you are in Madison, Tensas, or Claiborne parishes, they have noted that there is hail at 0.75 inches and winds topping 70 miles per hour.
Okay. All right, so again, this tornado warning has expired, and severe thunderstorm warnings remain in effect. If a new tornado warning is issued, we will join you back on air and online, but this will end our on-air and online coverage for at least the time being. Stay tuned to NBC 10 and Fox 14. We'll keep you updated with the latest as we go through the rest of the afternoon.